to angels, to the bright light. What's going on, you guys? Welcome back to the Brothers-in-Law. Tonight, we're at our buddy AJ's house, and he is going to show us how he creates and puts together his custom fishing rods, and he's been doing that for a handful of years now. So we'll follow along tonight and see what he has to offer.
So I have a brand new from MHX flipping rod that I'm going to build. So it's kind of a casting rod. For the most part, it's going to be used for bass fishing and whatnot. Got a Tatula, Daiwa. Tatula, however you say it, that we just picked up that we're planning on putting on it. So we'll kind of go through the process of starting with a blank rod blank and putting all the parts necessary on it to have it become a functional and usable fishing rod. We'll talk a little bit more about the rod that we're going to be building today. So it's 7'4" in length. I bought it with, it's going to be heavy power, and it's going to be nice, fast action. So what we talk about with power and action, power basically talks about how much weight it actually takes to bend the rod. Fast action talks about where it actually bends on the rod. So the faster the action, the more towards the end it's gonna end up bending at. Extra fast all the way out towards the end, kind of fast is in this general area. Now we've got moderate, which would have it bend kind of in this area. Moderate's a little bit better for if you're really trying to set hooks, bobber fishing. You don't have to have your timing as so on point when you're going to set a hook. Fast action, you get a lot more feel for when the fish actually hits, but you have to really be on point with when you set the hook, because with how fast that action is and how quickly it can pull the lure out of a fish's mouth, that's kind of where we have to go with having that moderate action, fast action. So there you go. Take all these pieces and we're going to lay them out. We're going to actually kind of place every part where it's going to be. I'm going to take this China marker here, is basically just a grease pen, to mark out where everything's going to go. That way I know where I've got to put epoxy and glue, whatnot. And then we've got to do some reaming of these holes here, because the holes that these come with aren't quite the diameter of the rod blank. Obviously these are interchangeable parts with whatever rod blanks that you buy. So what we've got to do is we've got to get the grips to actually fit the rod blank. So that's what we'll do now, is get everything set up where it's supposed to be, mark it out, and then go ahead and do it. Okay, so this is just our grip pieces here right now. So we've got our butt end. We'll lay that out to where that's going to go. We've got our rear grip. Just kind of space it out to where we think we need it. Usually about 11 to 12 inches is probably good up to your trigger. So we'll get that measured out. And obviously our foregrip piece, that'll end up going right here. So there you go, 11 1/4 to the trigger. Take this, mark out where this is going to end up. Alright, so if you want to look up close here, I've just got our China marker, kind of grease pen, showing where everything's going to end up. Okay. Alright, so if you're not aware, if you've never really built a rod or looked into how much performance you can actually get out of a custom rod, A lot of times what people don't know is there's actually a spine to a rod blank. And what I mean by that is just the way that either your carbon fiber or your fiberglass or your graphite's woven. There are certain points in a rod. If you can see this, I'm not sure if you can. If you want to look at the end right at the end there, or the butt end. So when I spin it, you can see how it kind of snaps into place there. There's a good one right there. See how it just kind of snaps into place. So what that essentially is the spine of the rod. Now if you get your spine off and you've got all your guides glued on in the wrong spot, and you end up setting a hook on a fish, or you've got it bowed down carrying that load of the fish, the rod will actually want to twist in your hand, and then your guides will kind of be off center. So if you've got the spine correct, you'll get a lot better performance out of your rod, and it'll strictly just want to pull down and not try to twist that grip or that reel out of your hand. So that's what we're doing. All right, so now we're actually going to find the spine of the rod. So generally with a casting reel, your reel is going to be on top of the rod, and your guides are going to be put on top of the rod. So if you can just imagine now, this is the way the rod would generally bend if it was in your hand and you got a fish on, and you're trying to reel it in. So what we want here is to mark out exactly the top of the rod in a place where it's not going to try to spin out of your hand. Remember what I talked about before? There's just the way that rods are generally built. It has the spine into it, so we have to find the position where it doesn't want to spin out of our hand. You can kind of see how it's snapping in and out. Right here is about where we're going to want to be. So now that we've figured out where that spine is, just note where the top is here. Take a marker. And just note where that's at. So now that's what we use to run down the top of this rod. Now that we know that it wants to bend this way and not spin out of our hand, we'll use this marker to set up our reel seat, and then we'll use that to align our guides, and it'll denote that this is the top of the rod. So we'll get started on that. These are our guides. Came in a pack, this casting guide kit. Luckily they come in kits like this, otherwise you can buy each guide individually, and then each individual size if you want. This is just technically easier because they size them for you, and they actually have a handy little thing on the back. Here's a little QR code. Tells you where to space them out. So I grabbed that QR code, went to the casting guide kit spacing chart, found out how long my rod was. So our 7'4" just tells you where to measure out and place each guide. Now you can do it wherever you want, but these are the pros, might as well do what they say. Wrapping our guides on. Right now what I'm doing is finishing off our wraps. We're going to have our tag end, is what we call it. At the end, this is just going to be used to pull that tag end through to finish the wrap so it doesn't come undone. we have a 2-part epoxy that we paint on to our wraps. So we took some nylon thread, wrapped it around the guides. That's what holds it in place and gives you your design. I just went with a real simple design on this one just to show you guys kind of the process. There's definitely more decorative designs out there, and we can show you one of them that I've done here recently. But other than that, you get your thread on there, it'll hold your guides on, and then your epoxy is actually what gives it a nice shiny finish, and actually what gives you most of your strength to hold the guides on. So that's what we're doing right now. We've got a little I think it's a 9 revolutions a minute motor that spins it. We just paint this epoxy on. It takes probably a good 12 to 16 hours to actually dry and cure and set up to get to a usable point. And then you've got your fishing rod. Alright guys, so at this point it's pretty much watching paint dry, except it's epoxy, obviously. This will have to set up and dry and cure for probably the next 8 to 10 hours, and it'll be usable in, I'd say, probably 12 to 14. For the most part, the epoxy, the reason it has to spin is if it doesn't, the epoxy is thin enough at this point where if you just let it set, it'll actually sag and it'll get real thin on top and real thick on the bottom. So that's why we kind of got to put it on. It's basically a rotisserie motor is all it is. But once this sets up and cures, we'll throw a reel on it, get it lined up, and be able to use it. So when you get, this is an MHX rod blank. I got it through Mud Hole. If you guys have never heard of that, they just sell a bunch of rod building supplies. This particular rod, obviously, you get your sweet MHX logo, nothing crazy there. But with each of the larger rods, if you can see this, this is a sticker that you can actually throw on it, and it'll tell you what the model of the blank is, obviously how long it is, the pound test that you can put on it, and then the weight of the lure that it's designed for. I actually have a serial number on it as well. So kind of a cool thing when you go the route of a custom rod. Obviously, if you guys aren't aware, this is the quickest way to pass drying time.
Well, there you go, folks. Another day in the life makes some custom rods. As always,
God bless.
and Godspeed.